All right, 3, 2, 1, let's get it. Welcome back to What's Your Problem, the podcast. And today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. And it's a concept that I've been reflecting on after revisiting James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. I've read the book many times, but I think it's just one of those books where you need to pick a chapter from time to time, man, and just dive into it. And what's interesting is I got to the end of the book. I just cracked it open to the end, and there's some appendix back there that are for some additional thoughts that aren't a part of the big book itself. And what I thumbed to was about happiness and suffering and why these two aren't opposites, but they're actually deeply intertwined. Happiness and suffering are not two sides of the coin. They're actually on the same side. So let's dive in. Because if you've ever wondered why happiness feels so fleeting, or why challenges often lead to moments of clarity and joy, this is going to be a good episode for you. So first, let's talk about the source of unhappiness. And think about this for a moment. When you're unhappy, it's rarely because of the result itself. It's not the credit card debt or the love handles that make you unhappy. It's the inaction that led to those results. The real dissatisfaction comes from knowing that you didn't take the steps needed to prevent them. I mean, think about that. You think in this current state of unhappiness, it's this moment. I've put on too much weight. My credit cards are maxed out. And you think it's that. That's not the source of your unhappiness. It's everything that led up to that. And this is where suffering productively comes into play for you. Because a form of suffering is confronting who you are and what you do every single day. That's why confrontation is so key. It's one of the 5 life skills that you must develop. That is the framework for what's your problem. Communication, curiosity, creativity, continuous learning and action, and productive confrontation. So a productive form of suffering is confronting who you are and what you do every single day. And it's holding yourself accountable, being honest about your choices, and doing what's necessary to grow. This kind of suffering isn't destructive. Most people think of suffering as destructive. This kind of suffering is not destructive at all. It's really productive because it's going to create this productive tension, and it's that tension that drives the progress. Now, on the other side, you got to realize, I'm learning this, that happiness isn't a permanent state. It's fleeting by nature, and that's okay. It's more so like a pulse. Happiness should be a temporary comfort, more so like a rest area, not a vacation spot. And so when you see happiness is temporary, you stop, you reflect, you recharge, and then you lace up and you keep going. Treating happiness like a permanent vacation spot, that's going to lead to complacency. So here's a shift in perspective that has really helped me. Chase the effort, not the results. Results are fleeting. They're going to come and go. But the effort, the energy, the discipline that you put into meaningful actions, that's what's going to sustain you. Happiness is perfect effort without an attachment to needing perfect results. And when I say perfect effort, I don't mean that it's going to be a 10. I just mean that perfect means that you go all chips in. You don't pull your punch. You don't pull back some of your energy. You don't worry about the results. Chase the effort, not the results. So you go head first in. And it's liberating and freeing because you don't have an attachment to needing perfect results. The results are going to be what they are. It's kind of like bowling. Once you release the ball, you can lean all kind of different ways. It's going to go where it goes. and you can lean away from the gutter, sometimes you're going to hit the gutter. But see, the effort itself is what makes the journey worthwhile. The suffering you embrace, that you volunteer for, to stay disciplined, to take action, to push you through the discomfort, that's the foundation of real fulfillment. James Clear describes happiness as the absence of desire. It's a brief moment where you feel no need to change your state. But you got to realize that moment is temporary because new desires always emerge. And that's a good thing. It's a real good thing because this is what's going to keep you moving forward. So let's break it down. Happiness isn't about reaching a specific state. And when you think of a state, think of whatever state you live in right now. California. Happiness isn't about reaching a specific state, in the state of becoming debt-free or hitting your goal weight, because those moments are fleeting. I mean, when I've been at my quote-unquote ideal weight, or I've had the financial security, happiness didn't linger. I thought all this time I would be at this specific point and be like, and it's not. I quickly found myself like, all right, what's next? It's because the happiness is more so like a pulse. And so I felt it and I was pushing for it. But when I got it, it was like, what else is there? It's because your desires are always changing. This is why happiness is less about achieving a destination and more so about the act of pursuing something meaningful. Think of happiness more so like a trip. And along the way, along your trip, there are going to be these mile markers. And these mile markers are these points where you reflect. More so like a pulse. And so you check that pulse and you're like, yep, I'm beating toward that success. But the journey never ends. You're never going to be at inbox 0 where you're just like, But so many times, man, that's where we deceive ourselves and we think, oh, if only I could do this. There's always going to be challenges ahead. And this is where the suffering comes in. Productive suffering. Suffering is the space between craving a change and achieving it. It's the discomfort where you feel that you're working towards something better. And that's a good thing when you think about it like that. Let me read that to you again. Suffering is the space. I love that analogy. It's the space between craving a change and achieving it. It's the discomfort that you feel while you're working towards something better. But when that suffering is productive, when it's tied to something meaningful, and the effort is meaningful, it leads to happiness. But it's a pulse. It's going to be fleeting. Viktor Frankl said, happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue. It's the byproduct of effort and action. So, how do you sustain happiness? You got to make it a game. You got to gamify it, man. What's the challenge or pursuit that excites you? What drives you? What makes you frustrated? What makes you grit your teeth a little bit? What makes you dig into the dirt? What makes you come back at it the next day? You got to have a game. Because without a game, without something to chase, you risk complacency. And complacency erodes discipline. So you got to respect the journey and everything that comes along with it. The highs, the lows, the challenges, they're all part of it. Happiness is not a state of if-then. If I lose the weight, then I'll be happy. If I get debt-free, then I'll be happy. It's not a state. It's more so of a journey if-then, where the process of taking action, making progress, that's the source of fulfillment. If I do this productively, then it'll lead to a good result. I'm just putting myself in alignment, And that's what the suffering is every single day. It's checking your alignment and making the adjustments in your alignment. And you just keep going. And when you look at happiness as a mile marker, as a temporary state, then it becomes more so about the effort and not the result, because you're embracing productive suffering. So here's the takeaway. Happiness and suffering must coexist. They got to. Because without suffering, there'd be no desire to change, to grow, or to achieve anything worthwhile, anything new. Suffering, when it's intentional and tied to meaningful goals, dude, this is what fuels progress. Happiness, on the other hand, is the fleeting moment. Fleeting. It's not going to be a permanent state. Stop chasing a permanent state. It's not going to be there. It's going to be fleeting. And so when you feel these pulses of happiness, reflect on the progress. It's a rest area, but it's never going to be a final destination. And so when you embrace this dynamic, this is where you can find joy in the journey and meaning in the struggle. All right, let's get out of here. Thanks for tuning in today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's keep this conversation going. I'm on all the socials. DM me there, or you can go to myname.com. That's MARSHBUICE. In the bottom right is a mic from you to me. Let me know what's going on in your world and how I can help. As always, remember, keep it simple, keep it moving, never settle, stay tough. Peace.